Hello, listeners. Today we're going to be talking about a Vietnamese anti-war broadcaster from the Vietnam War by the name of Dinh Thi Ngo. Ngo, who was also known publicly as Tu Hoang or more popularly as Hanoi Hannah, was born in 1931 in the capital of Hanoi, Vietnam, and passed away in 2016 after 85 years of life. From 1965 to 1973, she hosted an 8-year radio segment on a station called Radio Hanoi that aimed to demoralize American troops fighting against the Viet Cong in the jungles of southern Vietnam. Hanoi Hannah's main goal was to disarm and create a sense of uneasiness with her words as American troops listened from their campgrounds or ship quarters. In 1994, in an interview with New York Times almost 2 decades after the war had ended, she described her mission, saying, "My work was to make the GIs understand that it was not right for them to take part in this war. I talked to them about the traditions of the Vietnamese, to resist aggression. I want them to know the truth about this war and to do a little bit to demoralize them so that they will refuse to fight." On broadcasts, she read excerpts from recently published American magazines, read news of anti-war protests back in America, and, on every Friday, recited the names of Americans killed in action as reported from the U.S. military newspaper Stars and Stripes. Again, to New York Times, she said, "My goal was to tell GIs they shouldn't participate in a war that wasn't theirs. I tried to be friendly and convincing. I didn't want to be shrill or aggressive. When mentioning the war's developments, I often quoted American newspapers to make the information more objective." The effectiveness of Ngo's broadcasts are debated to this day. In many instances, soldiers reported feeling amused or enthralled by the broadcasts when American anti-war songs were played or when American magazines were read. Lieutenant Commander Ray Vodin, who was shot down in his plane above Hanoi, listened to the messages for 8 years as a prisoner of war. He said, "Hannah's broadcasts often stirred up arguments among the POWs. There were nearly fist fights over the program. Some guys wanted to hear it, while others tried to ignore it. Music was the best part of it. Sometimes playing American tunes that were supposed to make us homesick had the opposite effect. One time they played Downtown by Petula Clark, and everyone started dancing and yelling for an hour, just went wild." Senator John McCain, who was a prisoner of war in Hanoi for 5 years, had similar doubts on the effectiveness of the propaganda, saying, "I heard Hannah every day. She was a marvelous entertainer. I'm surprised she didn't get to Hollywood." Ngo was also known to overly conflate certain statistics about developments in the war in order to convince American troops that their cause wasn't worth it. Commander McLean thought so despite loving her taste in music, saying, "She always exaggerated our aircraft losses, often claiming hundreds of our planes were shot down when we hadn't heard anti-aircraft fire in weeks." Some truth remained in her claims, though, with Ngo reading out the names of crew members on captured ships with lists that were 100% accurate, and saying they were all going to die. She also received and played recorded messages from Americans who were against the war, such as celebrities and activists like Jane Fonda and Tom Hayden. Ngo thought messages from home were most effective of all, since they theoretically made troops homesick. However, information broadcast about the fight in her home turf was just as haunting. Ken Watkins, a corpsman with the U.S. 1st Marines based at Marble Mountain in 1966, was asked if there were any of her broadcasts that he particularly remembered. He replied, "Whenever she named our unit, the 1st Marines, and where we were, that always stands out in my mind. Some of us thought she had spies everywhere or a crystal ball." Despite varying first-hand claims on the effectiveness of her broadcasts throughout the Vietnam War, Hanoi Hannah has a historical legacy for her work promoting the end of conflict through the war's information battle. Her recordings are reflected upon in regards to anti-war sentiments in America, even today.